Oh, I looked for it, got a job at Sears Roebuck warehouse. I was working there comfortably, and then I was laid off just before I completed a year. The story was if I was there a year, I'd be a regular guy. So the story was they were hiring guys like me in less than a year because they had to give 'em a raise. They'd lay 'em off. Something to do with Sears. And so out of that, I just went to school, Frank Wiggins Trade School. Frank Wiggins Trade School to become a mechanic. I was there close to about a year. Auto electrics and auto mechanics. Well, I worked in the garage, Shepherd's Garage, near where I lived. And I utilized the skills I got at the school that helped me do a comfortable job with any car. And during that time, I decided, I worked with a guy by the name of Frank, and he says, yeah, young guy, get the hell out of this kind of business, he tells me. Go to school, become a teacher or something. And he was an old-timer, had bruised hands and all that experience as a mechanic. And so I thought, good idea. So I started going to East LA College. I took a class at a time. And this took me 11 years. I subsequently got a graduation. I finished East LA College part-time and then went to Cal State LA and got a degree there. I went to a shoe shop on Atlantic Boulevard in East LA area. I came out and drove my car away, and pretty soon a radio car caught up to me with lights on, pulled me over. This is 10 o'clock in the morning. And I see a deputy sheriff, and he came over to me, and I don't know what the heck I did wrong. And he says, he gave me his name. He was a tall, great-looking guy. And he says, I saw you yesterday over here doing the same thing, and I tried to stop you, and I wanted to talk to you about joining the sheriff's department. He said, I saw you, and I knew that you could become a deputy sheriff, and we need Latino guys. And so I listened to what he said. He says, they're having an exam Saturday. Join the department. And I did show up, took the test, along with two of my other buddies. I passed the test, they didn't pass the test, so I became a deputy. I was called for an interview course. And then I was given a real test and written material, and so they accepted me. I became a deputy sheriff. Maybe a month of scholastic involvement. There was no physical anything, just scholastic involvement, testing, and so on. I got through with that, and I was sent to the county jail in midnight shift. I worked the county jail for about a year, and I decided I had a good friend who was working in the Narcotics Bureau, and I went and talked to him. He said it was a great job, so I talked to the lieutenant about the job there, and I was hired. So I became a narcotics officer. And during that time, I passed a sergeant's exam. I was transferred to East LA Station, and I was working a narcotics unit out of that area. And I did that for a little while. I was going to school at the same time, so I kind of did all right there. And then I took a test for lieutenant and passed it as number 1 on the list, as I recall. And so I was promoted to lieutenant and kept at East LA Station. There were a couple of, you might say, I don't know, call them insurrections or riots by members of the community and members from without the community. It is said by our intelligence, the members of the outside community came in to raise problems with the sheriff's department because the sheriff's department was suggested to be biased. So they came in and tried to get organizations to protest the sheriff's department at all times. And I was there, and I went to many of the meetings that were started. And I believe the community had confidence in me because it never got started. Because I answered all the questions, I told them the reason why we did what we did. Even though it was wrong, I would tell them we made mistakes. Most of them men that worked in a station, they were Anglo completely, and know nothing about Spanish speaking. As a consequence, I tried to recruit more and more Latinos, which language was super important work in the East LA community, whether a deputy, sergeant, whatever you were. If you spoke Spanish, you were at an advantage. I was not to be known as a policeman. I went down there to check out, to deal with people, groups, and see what was happening in the Watts community, the anger of the people and so on. So I talked to a few, and them not knowing me as an officer, but as a civilian, and I gave the information to whatever I received to my boss, which was the captain of the intelligence unit. Their main complaint was brutality by the officers and being just ugly. And the word got to the police chief, I guess, and slowly but surely everything changed to the better. I was working mainly in the evening and into the nights, talking to whomever I wanted to. I was a sergeant at the time, and I never came out in newspapers or anything like that, so I was just one of the guys. I let my hair grow a little bit, and I was one of the guys in the community. In the Watts community had Latino community within the community. Over here on one side, a lot of Latino communities, and most, of course, were African Americans. The main thing was anger, prejudice against LAPD, maybe the LAPD. The Sheriff's Department was hardly involved there. It may have helped to some extent getting inside, but they had their own inside people like myself as the officers. They were there also as civilians. And the problem is, in my opinion, like I told you should have had some black officers, but the LAPD didn't have black officers at that time to gather intelligence, And so it was very hard to get true information because the blacks are not talking to anybody who was white or brown even, hardly. It was not comfortable. But then slowly but surely, I believe the more articulate, learned Anglos, teachers, they became teachers and heads of the African American. And I think they decided the scholastic involvement was the best. And that's where there was a great change from what I recall. Scholastic involvement by not only the Latino community, but the African American community. I used to teach school to a limited extent in Garfield High School, a couple of nights a week, one night a week, and I used to try to stimulate some interest in the community. And I used to go to meetings that were held by the East Los Angeles station. The East LA community was well organized with groups that represented the community. Good people that wanted peace and quiet and wanted to talk to the sheriff, and they were just for justice. Sometimes it became a little violent because they got charged up by people who wanted some problems. East LA Station became a unit that was most representative of the best at that time. Evidence of complaints, for example. Prior to that, we received tough complaints about bad acting cops, deputies. And later on, it dropped down pretty soon because we got better officers, younger, better educated officers. And I think it's quelled a storm of incorporation, for example, and what have you. So I think the Sheriff Pitch as being there, he developed a PR system, and more Latino officers were developed in the department and sent to East LA, which was the best thing that happened. Because they spoke Spanish, they realized they developed their own growth, so they were more understandable than not. Just general information about the police, about the Sheriff's Department, our activities, our response to what problems, some of the problems that the community itself developed, gang problems facing each other. We were there to try to solve them by having the basketball tournament, which seemed to be unlikely. The guys from this area here to the guys over here from this area, they got together and they started playing basketball, and they didn't fight. They played basketball. They got to know each other better. So we had that kind of programs, and baseball also. We received a lot of donations from outside the community to buy baseball bats, and so we developed a baseball team here and there. And that kind of sports activity, I think, helped to an extent because it was a large investment. In terms of time, the sheriff, by the way, allowed our deputies to be assigned to a particular playground to make sure that the baseball teams developed instead of the way they were doing. They were fighting each other. But then we got them baseball bats, this and that by contributions. So there was a little development in that area. I think it did some good, and it's the beginning of a growth of better relations among the community members themselves. I try to encourage my guys at East LA to go to attend school, East LA, to begin with. And some of them did, and some of them did well. But that was the importance, I think. So I taught school on request.
What did you teach there?
Police and the police and you, the police and public. And I got the occasion to teach officers, brand new officers at the academy. Sheriff invited me at times. I believe I selected an assignment, a job, if you want to call it, with interest, and I think I did a lot of good in terms of who I was. I spoke Spanish. I could read and write Spanish. I grew up in the East Los Angeles community. I just feel comfortable with talking to anybody in English or Spanish. That was a lot of comfort. When I went to East LA Station, assigned as a new lieutenant, there was turmoil here and there, and I eventually got to know the guys. There were deputies there, and we came to a really good understanding. Sometimes they didn't realize that some of the things they were doing was stupid and wrong. So I think I educated quite a few of them there, if you want to call it educated. And I think I did something for the good there. As a captain, I believe I represented the community, not only the sheriff's department, but the community collectively. First of all, I think education is important, irrespective of where they're going. And to stay in school, graduate from high school, continue to educate yourself in college, because high school is important. But more important now is the opening. If you have a higher education, the chances are better of success. And the more you're educated, the better you're going to become an influence in the community, in my opinion. So it's to serve the community, at the same time, make a living. And I just wish that we could have more leaders in the Latino community as we move along. We're doing well, but do much better.